Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of the Auditing Insanity Newscast brought to you by ReallyCoolNews. I'm Jim Finch and I'll be your host tonight for two big stories, a fake out look at the GoFundMe market and a special apology. We're still in shock from being eligible for monetization by YouTube and we'll update everyone once we're approved by the service. Again, thank you to everyone who made that happen. Now, let's skip forward as we ask you to focus on GoFundMe, thank you for a bigger win. Monday brought another win to our ongoing expenses campaign, beating out everyone again by earning $10 from our devoted hate watcher who really wants this column to continue on a day marked by a bigger win in the background. Hijacking this column once again since there's literally no action in the market. Even Jose DeCastro's humble brag efforts to spawn some donations on his live stream on Monday resulted in no donations, other than a handful of super chats and gifted memberships in his live stream, but no actual donations to his crowdfunding efforts. So with that out of the way, we're going to dive into the bigger news for the person who is writing this column. Thanks to the efforts of promoting us up the wazoo by NCR News Network, we've reached the 500 subscriber mark, and this morning I was able to file for level 1 monetization. YouTube is currently reviewing our AdSense account, and then it says it can take up to a month to review our content before monetization will officially be turned on. After that, we'll need at least $100 a month in some sort of revenue to join the growing list of deadbeats or independent journalists who get paid every 20-something-ish of the month in YouTube land. We're indebted to NCR and others for getting us over the final hump and into this stage. We thank all of you as well for your support since May, when we were kind of forced into the role as we left the other place to continue our Karen Reed coverage, which turned into the daily newscasts, which turned into the watch party and newscast, and so on and so on and so on. Despite our many mistakes and some growing pains, you've been here every step of the way to support us through views, feedback, gentle reminders when we've needed them, and of course, donations. We've made it clear in our crowdsourcing that we intend for YouTube to be our full-time job eventually, and we've been living off the money we get in donations in order to survive. That will continue until such a time that YouTube either takes off to the point where we don't need to crowdsource, or we end up getting another job until it does. The news, of course, never ends. Even on days like this when we're barely awake due to allergies and would rather be asleep, Rose gave us the cooties, we're still putting out content and getting things done. We may have to recruit Pants to do some voice work tonight, and the 500 subscriber celebration tonight may be a bit of a blur from the cough syrup, but hey, we don't drink, but it wouldn't be a proper party without someone embarrassing themselves, so bring it on, britches! And let's get this party started. On that note, if you'd like to join our hate viewers in exposing our secret plot to make Rose the happiest gal on the planet one day, life insurance puts a smile on every girl's face, we do have a GoFundMe of our own. All proceeds go to keeping the lights on, eating, and writing new stories to feature here and on ReallyCoolSite.org. DeCastro to repeal most vehicle safety laws. Jose DeCastro returned to live streaming Monday night with a 90-minute live stream congratulating himself for beating obstruction charges in Las Vegas and announcing that he'll abolish most vehicle safety laws when he is elected governor. DeCastro has traveled through Arizona, California, and Nevada in the past few days and has been concentrating on family and friends as he deals with fixing his broken teeth and the PTSD he claims he has from his time in jail. The YouTuber explained that the entire time he was in jail, he would tailor his sleeping patterns to reflect which guards were on duty, and if an evil guard was on a shift, he'd force himself to sleep through the shift and then be up all night if a good guard was working the next shift. He said he suffered intentional trauma and distress while in jail, as he knew that he had a second trial coming for the recently dropped obstruction charge, and he faced a year or 2 years in jail since it would have been his second conviction. The YouTuber dramatically blamed Justice of the Peace Ann Zimmerman for inflicting emotional damage on him by wrongfully sentencing him to trumped-up charges.
Turning his attention to Zimmerman, he said he'd soon launch his lawsuit and media campaign against her to make her pay for improperly forcing him into jail. DeCastro dramatically paused after describing his PTSD and went into a full-throated rage about police and policing in America. He promised that when he was elected to be the executive of an unnamed state in the future, he would eliminate seatbelt laws, laws regulating turn signals and lights on cars, and proof of registration. He then turned his attention to police officers, briefly showing the start to a news story where a police pledged more training after losing a lawsuit. DeCastro shouted that more training wasn't enough, police officers need to be fired, and have criminal charges made against them if they act improperly on the job. The YouTuber smiled as he said that now that the second obstruction charges were dropped, it would be easier to strip qualified immunity from the police officers who arrested him in the case and sue them for their immoral actions. DeCastro did not address the growing backlash against him for dropping the claims of being a constitutional law scholar and instead crowdfunding for lawyers to take on his multitude of criminal and civil lawsuits. The YouTuber has made his entire brand around pitching the idea of defendants going pro se without needing lawyers and relying on his teachings to get them through lawsuits. At one point, he said he was selling his own legal documents that could apparently be substituted for the work of a lawyer. These sales allegedly made up a good portion of his income. Now that he has embraced using his fans' money to pay for his expensive lawyer instead of showing his skills as a constitutional law scholar, there's been an observed growing backlash against him for selling his products aimed at self-representation. DeCastro did address the services of attorney Joshua Tomczak, the lawyer who was able to get the obstruction charges dismissed, addressing calls to refund the money of donors since he crowdsourced and no longer needed that money. He said that while he may have had money left on Tomczak's retainer, there was no way to get money back from a lawyer. Announcing a change in his free trifold program, he stated that when he sends out a free physical copy of his trifold, they are no longer professionally printed physical copies of the product. Instead, he substitutes a photocopy of the trifold in black and white, which contains the same information, just in destructible form. He ended up repeating his announcements that the Team DLZ website would soon be launched, and while not defining the purpose of the website, he did mention that he would be uploading exclusive videos to the site for his fans to track his travels across America.
Canton 9 charges dropped in other news. The pro-Karen Read protesters known as the Canton 9 were informed on Monday that charges against them for felony witness intimidation would not be pursued by Canton police. In copies of physical mail shared with Aidan Turtleboy Kearney and then reposted on his Twitter, members of the group shared their notices from Canton police that they would not be charged with the crime of witness intimidation, as it was found that there was no probable cause for those charges. According to published reports, no arrests were made when the protesters were confronted by police as they protested across the street from D&E Pizza, owned by Christopher Albert, brother of Brian Albert, and father to Colin Albert, who the group has accused of being the real murderer of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Members of the group received summons to appear in court for potential felony witness intimidation charges weeks after the incident. Turtleboy Kearney reacted to the news with the following tweet. Congrats to the Canton 9, who will not be charged with felony witness intimidation for peacefully protesting across the street from Chris Albert's mediocre pizza shop last November. They had their clerk's hearings in January, and although there was clearly no probable cause to charge them, they waited 7 months in order to keep them in limbo and scare them out of exercising their First Amendment rights by peacefully protesting again. Karen Read's trial for the murder of John O'Keefe recently resulted in a hung jury. Continuing with a report made by a tweet by Turtleboy Kearney, he is now claiming that Brian Albert and Michael Proctor have possibly been hired by former Boston Police Sergeant Marty Kraft's private investigation company.
Kearney posted, according to multiple sources, Brian Albert is working for a private investigation company owned by disgraced former Boston Police Sergeant Marty Kraft, and Michael Proctor has possibly been hired too. He wouldn't confirm when I asked him today. Marty has very strong feelings about Karen Reed that he expressed on Facebook. Reporter Grant Smith Ellis blamed the leak of the news about Brian Albert's new employment on masshole troll mafia leader Kate Peter, tweeting, per sources, Kate Peter, aka Mafia Masshole, leaked the following information about Brian Albert to a former federal agent close to Peter's prior colleague, Aidan Turtleboy Kearney. This was done apparently to distract from scandals engulfing Peter over the weekend. In more Reed gossip, reporter Ellis is now claiming that accused murderer Karen Reed is now dating a real estate agent named Rich Rossi. Ellis tweeted, Rich Rossi, a real estate agent who is reported to be currently dating accused murderer Karen Reed, abandoned his family of 3 years in July of 2024 in order to start a relationship with John O'Keefe's accused killer, according to sources indirectly familiar with ongoing developments. The connection started after someone named Renee Rose, who knew that Rich was married, got Rossi into court and asked Rossi to be Karen's free bodyguard. Reed herself cheated on John in the weeks before his murder with a federal agent and in John's house, which in turn caused a breakdown in their relationship, leading to a drunken fight that at least 9 jurors found during Reed's first trial culminated in Reed hitting O'Keefe with her car while drunk driving and then leaving John to die in the snow. Karen Reed was previously romantically attached to her defense attorney, Alan Jackson, after compromising photos of the pair in an intimate embrace were shared with TMZ. Retraction and Apology. On the Monday night edition of the Watch Party, I made statements regarding my random thoughts about the lottery structure of the giveaways that had previously been held on the Welsh News Network's programming. I specifically stated that the same charges from fans that Mr. Beast and Aidan Turtleboy Kearney held illegal lotteries could be applied to the giveaways that were held on WNN. In that case, I was specifically referring to the fact that fans had to buy into all 3 of the giveaways to earn the prizes. At no time was I insinuating that the WNN giveaway shared the further charges that they were rigged to go to friends and family members as part of those charges against the giveaways. Becca, formerly of WNN, reminded me that from time to time there were free entries given for monthly entries into the giveaways. Those in attendance to WNN live streams would get the ability to earn a free entry by taking part in chats or through other methods as deemed by Daniel Jones. And to clarify, friends and family of WNN were disqualified from having entries in the giveaways. A randomizer was used on air when Becca did the drawings herself with little to no involvement from Daniel Jones. And those drawings and the build-up to adding the final names into the eligible lists were done completely on air in front of viewers. Becca's hard work to make those giveaways as transparent as possible should not be discounted, nor should accusations be made against her. She worked as best she could to make those drawings as fair as possible, and those who won computers and electronic devices received those devices because of Becca's efforts. She also continued to provide support to prize winners after the drawings were made to make sure the devices were working. On at least one occasion, she worked with the prize winner to return and replace a computer that was defective when it arrived from Amazon.com. There are still a lot of questions that remain unanswered about Daniel Jones and the money raised by the giveaways. Those questions will need to be answered by Daniel Jones. However, the way Becca ran the actual drawing and prize distribution were as transparent as possible. The drawings are still available over on WNN's channel, and you can witness for yourself her hard work and efforts to keep the drawings fair and transparent. I apologize if my offhand comments were taken out of context, and I publicly apologize to Becca if those comments inadvertently discounted her efforts to make sure her part of the giveaways was always above board. I did correct my comments on the air, but in the jumble of the 500 subscriber announcement, I really shouldn't have opened my mouth without preparing comments. I'll learn from this as we move forward, and thank you for this opportunity to clear the air on a very strange night at the watch party last night.